It is not enough for you to be my servant. I will make you the light of the nations. My dear friends, these words from the first reading taken from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 49, will guide our reflection this morning. The prophet Isaiah announces that God chose him, called him ever before he was born in his mother's womb. This announcement comes way into his ministry as a prophet. And we notice that at some point he was also feeling disappointed, as many religious people feel in their lives sometimes. And he said that he thought he had labored in vain. While I was thinking I have toiled in vain and have exhausted myself for nothing. That was when the Lord spoke and reassured him. It is not about what you do. It is about who you are. As my servant, you will restore the tribes of Jacob and bring back the survivors of Israel. That is action. That is apostolate. But that is not enough. That is not the primary thing. The primary thing is that I will make you light. I will make you the light of the nations so that my salvation may reach the ends of the earth. My dear sisters, my dear brothers in the priesthood, dear people of God, as we thank God for the gift of the religious, these beautiful flowers in the church, these jewels in the church, often not sufficiently appreciated, I would want to remind you, sisters, it's not about what you do in the church or in the world. It is about who you are. Our apostolate is activity. School, hospital, mission, those are activities. But we can be engaged in those apostolates without being the light of Christ that shines in the world. In our contemporary world, contemporary society, including Nigeria, at the center now is material wealth. And everybody wants to acquire as much of it as possible, and possibly with as little effort as possible. We lament that our young people, especially, are turning away from the faith in which they were baptized and brought up, and returning to so-called traditional religion that is not tradition, because what they are doing was not handed over, traditio, not handed over to them by anybody. They invent it. And behind all this drive, the engine is the desire for as much material wealth and comfort as possible. We lament that our nation is destroyed, devastated by corruption. The cause of corruption is the desire to acquire as much material wealth as possible with little or no work to show for it. You now understand, my dear sisters, what your life means for the world. Because this malaise, this canker worm in the society, materialism, is also attacking the church and her institutions, including some priests and religious persons, men and women. The desire for material wealth and the power that comes with it. That is why so much emphasis is placed even on activities. Some institutions don't mind whether their members still have enough time for prayer and meditation or not, so long as their apostolate is doing well. But you have answered a call not to do, but to be. And what have you decided to be? To be united to Christ like branches of the vine to the true vine. And the fruit then that you bear is not your product, but the product of Christ, whose light you reflect. It is not enough that you are my servant. I will make you the light of the nations. The vows you profess, the councils we are invited to live as priests, they stand in direct opposition to the values of the world. Obedience, poverty, chastity. We have become so self-willed in our world today that nobody wants to take instruction from others. And nobody wants to surrender his own will or her own will to the others. And you hear many religious complaining about the leadership team. In every congregation, I have not had private conversations with any of you, but I'm sure your congregation also experiences such. It has become very difficult for us to submit our wills to God through institutions in the church. When it comes to material wealth, it don't seem even that sometimes some choose the religious life or the priesthood as an easier access to material wealth and comfort. I have once heard a young man tell his friend who was a deacon and was to be ordained priest within a few months, Siajai, Kiriga Kamakwaye, or Hore Waja, Iyishiru Awurogbenye, Bowosh. Your lot is now better, because within a short time, you will remove the garb of poor people, of poverty, because you will be ordained a priest. And unfortunately, it is possible that some priests, some religious, choose this way of life or respond to this call because they think it would be their access to easy wealth. When it comes to chastity, some think it is no longer even a value. And the social media of today make it impossible even for one who wants this follows you to wherever you are. Vulgarity, impurity, and outright perversion in sexual life. And you look stupid if you still profess the vow of chastity. And this is why you are the light. This is why you become a light to the nations, more and more enveloped by darkness. The darkness of bloated individual wills that will not submit to any other will. The darkness of materialism that eats up our personal freedom. And the darkness of impurity that beclouds our vision. I thank you, sisters, as I congratulate you. And I thank you along with all the other holy, religious men and women and priests, majority of Catholic priests, religious sisters and religious brothers are striving to be lights in the world. I'm personally also appreciative and grateful to the Carmelite missionaries. Again, not for what you do, because for what you do. One of you, when she was in charge of my altar guest, was disturbing me too much. It's not for what you do, but for who you are. Your simple, unobtrusive, not loud presence in this diocese is light. And for this, I am grateful. It should not surprise you as missionaries that you may not get as many vocations as some other institutions around or institutes around. Also because even look at your habit, the choice of brown, earth brown, that does not need to worry about being stained while you are present in the life of the poor and the neglected. Just your presence. That color alone may not be attractive or glamorous. And you are not likely, to become one of those sisters who could become so favored that suddenly a house begins to rise in her father's compound. That is the light you bear. And that is what the world needs now. The reason for all this struggle for material wealth and comfort, which by the way, materialism is, by the way, the greatest threat to holiness in religious and priestly life. The quest for materialism makes a religious or a priest disobedient and unchaste because you can't enjoy wealth alone. Once you have money, once you have luxury, you will want somebody with whom to enjoy it. And in the case of women, in order to acquire that wealth and luxury, chastity becomes a problem. Materialism. But since many of you, most of you, have persevered, sister asked to be allowed to persevere for life in these vows she has professed in the community of the Carmelite missionaries, in the congregation of the Carmelite missionaries. Since you have persevered, this is your abiding as branches in the vine. This is your own way of being light. The world needs that light. Our nation needs that light. Our parish communities, diocesan communities need that light. And your example is challenging. The example of holy priests, the example of holy religious men and women, that example is challenging, especially to our brothers and sisters who are in the lay apostolate, the lay people. When they look up to the light, among them, one of them, it becomes a source of encouragement. One man once told me, Father, one of the things that give me courage to struggle to be faithful to woman, is if I see priests who are without any woman at all, I should be able to keep to one. The challenge your life presents to others, an encouragement it offers. So, my dear sisters, don't worry about the failures, and my brother priest as well. No matter what you do, you are likely to get stained. If you remember the proverb, the parable of the talents, when he who received 10 and he who received 5 came back and offered to the master the talents and the extra they had offered, they had brought, there wasn't any question about the mistakes they made in the process. But the one who was afraid of making mistakes was the one who was condemned. When you stand before the Lord on the day of judgment, and you show him your hands, if all you can tell the Lord is, Lord, you can see my hands are clean, he may answer you, yes, my daughter, I can see your hands are clean, but they are also empty. If your hands are empty because you didn't want to soil them, I'm not sure that is what the Lord expects of us. But you may stand before him, Lord, I'm sorry, my hands are stained and dirty. He may tell you, yes, my daughter, I know, I can say it. But they were stained in your effort to do some good. Don't be worried, therefore, about the mistakes. In your attempt to be who you are supposed to be, the light that reflects Jesus in the world, his quiet way or simple way of being among his people, you may make some mistakes. But that should not bother you. And my dear people of God, Nkocha, Anna Kocha and the father, then the sister, and now self, then the bishop, or carrier. Gana kocha he, benda inweriki nejenenya na bada. I was once in a family in Italy, and they were complaining they no longer have vocations to the priesthood. And it's a family I had visited a number of times. And I told them, no child who hears what you say about priests would ever want to become one. And I want to tell you also, Ndoka, many of these culture, they're based on nothing. But they be father nso, but they be ndo sister nso, yimara na obugi ha na-ekwu maka ha ebehebo. Anole tututu na asị na ihe m ndo sister na-eme, ndo onye na-abịa hụrụ ma onye na-aga ma ndo. Ịhụghị ihe ndo fada na-eme, ask your parish priest. Fada nke anyị na-anwa, fada nke unu na-anwa, the next parish, fada ahụ na-anwa, but na ndo fada. Thank God for your priests. Thank God for your sisters. Thank God for your brothers, religious brothers and monks. Thank them for who they are, and thank them for their life of example and for their life of prayer. You remember the story of Genesis chapter 18. Sodom and Gomorrah was busy doing what Nigerians are doing now. Abraham was before God praying. The rest of Nigeria may be sinning, but these women and others like them are kneeling before God daily praying, and priests are standing on his altar praying. And some are saying, why continue to pray for Nigeria in distress while Nigeria is getting worse? Until they wait for that life support on a marry hub. It's just like asking a patient in life support and oxygen, why keep all that life support and he's getting worse? Remember, and that is the beauty of religious life and celibate life. And the gospel and the parable about, or rather in this story, the question that the Sadducees asked Jesus about the resurrection. They told the story of the 7 brothers who married one woman. At the end, to Jesus, and when they asked him, whose wife will she be at the resurrection, since she was married to all 7 and got no child from them? Remember the answer of our Lord. At the resurrection, since they are like angels and children of God, they will not die. So they don't marry. Neither are they given to marriage. The life you are living is a life of the resurrection. And the life of poverty and obedience is a life of total dependence on no other than God. And this should be an invitation to all Nigerians that true happiness derives from our relationship with God, not from our relationship with material wealth and pleasure. Finally, sisters, like our Holy Father Pope Francis, I will remind you that Christian witnessing is a joyous witnessing. I don't know whether I'm saying something very, very dangerous now. If I suggest to the leaders of religious congregations, if you see a sister or a brother who is constantly angry at everybody and at everything, your chairman of vocation here, your chairman on vocation. Because a true religious has an inner joy that cannot be hidden. It's always in his or her face. That your inner joy is the first sign of the light that you are. But bear in mind, it is not by your power. Remain attached to him, because without him, you are only worthy to be burned. And when you are burning, you may provide heat, for others, but not light. But remain attached to him, and you will continue to be a light that reflects his brightness. So I congratulate also the jubilarians who has persevered in this life for several years, while asking others who are still contemplating and discerning their vocation to have courage. The road may be slippery, it may be steepy, it may be windy, but it is a joyous road to travel. May God keep you in his love. Amen.